Very nice work on making it this far in the portfolio project. We are nearing the end. In this lesson or in this part of the project, what we're going to focus on is replacing the navbar links that we've been using to navigate around the site with a real navbar, which is what we learned in lesson 7. We are going to break this down into 2 parts. First, we're going to work on the gallery page. That one is going to have a special navbar, and here's a preview of what it looks like. And then for the rest of the pages, we're going to do this inverse navbar that you see here. Let's go ahead and get started. As you know, the first step of working on the portfolio project in every lesson is to copy our code over from the previous lesson. So go ahead, pause this video, go back to lesson 6, copy what you did last time, which was adding in the table on the pricing page and also the thumbnails in the castle gallery page. So we're going to copy everything anyway. So just pause, go back and copy. Remember, my quick shortcut is just to navigate down here at the bottom, the nav bar at the bottom, and I can open up the last portfolio project in a new tab and basically just go back and forth between the tabs. I like to start at the top of my current exercise, so I make sure I get everything. So I'm going to go in order here. Again, go ahead and pause. When you come back, I'll have everything copied over, and then we can dive into the navbar. Okay, very nice work. So now that we have everything copied over, we want to definitely test it out to make sure things look right. I've messed up a bunch of times copying and pasting things into the wrong place. So take your time with this step, and of course, double check to make sure things look okay. So I'm going to open this up in a new window, and the home page looks good. Now I'm going to go over and check my galleries page and make sure that looks good. This has all my jumbotrons, and the only page we've worked on here is the castle gallery. So I'm going to double check and make sure that's loading properly. Perfect. Now we'll check our pricing page, and this looks great. And then finally the contact page. Okay, wonderful. So everything looks fine to me. Make sure it looks good on your end, and then you're ready to start building the navbar. So once you've confirmed that everything's good to go, let's go ahead and go over to the exercise tab, and let's review our goal for gallery HTML. All right, so I went ahead and reopened the portfolio in a new tab. Since we're going to be making a bunch of changes, let's keep this open so we can just refresh it rather than having to launch it every time we make a change. So first thing we're going to do is on the gallery page, we're going to add these nav pills to the gallery page. And the reason why the gallery page gets its own unique nav bar is, if you remember, the gallery page is made up of all of these jumbotrons. It doesn't really have any navigation to the other pages in our site. So that's an issue, because once we get here, we can't really go back home unless we hit the back button, and that's not the most efficient or the best design. So we're going to add in these nav pills, and we're going to make sure that the active page, which is the gallery page itself, gets the special highlight effect. All right, down here are the files that the various links should connect to. So home should link to index, gallery should link to gallery HTML, so on and so forth. And we're going to use what we know about the grid system. Hint, hint, they gave us a hint. We're going to use rows to make the nav bar take up 2 columns and the jumbotrons to take up 10 columns for the total of 12 that are in the Bootstrap grid system. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to want to head over to gallery HTML since we're entering this nav bar there. All right, so according to the instructions, the nav pills are going to go in the container div that's beneath the jumbotron. So that's right here. I see the jumbotron right at the top, and that's right here on the corresponding page. So under the jumbotron, there is another container, and this is where our navigation is going to go. So basically, we were given a hint that we should make use of the grid system. The nav is going to take up 2 columns, and the jumbotrons are going to take up 10 columns. So I'm going to set that up first. First thing I need to do is make my row. So div class equals row. And since everything's going in this row, I'm going to take that closing div tag and I'm going to put it under the jumbotrons. I'm going to tab in my jumbotron so it's a little easier to read, because there's a lot of div tags and it can get really confusing if you don't tab in and make, good use of your white space. All right, this is just good developing habit. So we got our row set up. Now I'm going to set up the part of the row that's going to take up 2 columns, which is the navigation. So that's going to be a separate div tag with the class equal to, I'm going to set it to call SM2. We weren't given a specific device size, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the small size. So this is where my nav is going to go. And remember, we can make use of comments. so that we know what we plan to put in there. And underneath that, where the jumbotrons are, that's going to take up 10 columns. So I'm going to separate that out with another div. And I'm going to make sure that the closing div tag for that, again, it's going under the jumbotrons. And I'm tabbing in so that I have more readable code, and it's easier when I go back later to make edits. I can read things better. All right, so we got our row set up. We have the navigation taking up 2 columns in the row, and the jumbotrons, which are these jumbotrons under the main one, taking up 10 columns. And once we got that set up, we're ready to go in and start building our navigation. So go ahead, put in your rows, make sure you got your columns set up right, and then we'll dive in and build the navigation. To start the navigation, we're going to use the nav tag. We've seen this earlier, and the class that I'm going to use here, the Bootstrap class, is the nav class. Under this, I'm going to put in a fluid container to hold my navigation. And to start the nav bar, we are going to use an unordered list. And this one is going to be set to nav pills. Now, this we haven't seen before, but the nav pills basically create, rather than one big block as a navigation bar, you're going to get these separate, what Bootstrap calls pills, but they're just basically like separate list items, and they get this cool like rounded rectangle around it when you're on the active class or you're hovering over a class. So this sets up the beginning part, just the unordered list. Now we're ready to start putting in the pages. So the first list item is going to say home, and this is going to link to home. So I'm going to also wrap it in an anchor tag that links to index.html. And I'm going to take that closing tag, put it around home, and I'm going to give the list item the class equal to nav item. This is Bootstrap, an additional Bootstrap class we can use to style this list item. And I think this should be good for now. So since this is essentially going to be the same for the rest of my list items, galleries, price, contact, I'm going to paste that through. And I'm going to change the pages and obviously the text that is in the list item. So this one is going to link to gallery, and it's going to say galleries. This one is going to link to pricing, and it's going to say pricing. And then finally, the last one is going to link to contact HTML, and it's going to say contact. All right, we've made a bunch of changes. Let's see what things are looking like so far. So I'm going to save, I'm going to refresh my gallery page and see what's going on. All right, great. So we see our nav pills are there at the top. When you hover over them, you can see that it highlights for you. So only thing I'm going to do is just make sure that it's working properly. I'm going to go back and test the other links. This is, again, good developing habit. You don't want to just assume that you are good to go. You want to definitely make sure things are working as well. So contact should link to the contact page. Okay, excellent. All right, so this takes care of the gallery HTML page. Now we're ready to build the nav bar that's going to go on all of the other pages. Let's dive into that next. If you need to take a break at this point, do so. Pause the video, take a break, and then come back and we'll build the rest of the navigation. Amazing job. We have one last piece to do, and that's adding the nav bars to the rest of the site. But remember, we're not doing it on the home page because the home page already has this beautiful, colorful navigation we've set up at the way beginning. We're going to add in this inverse nav bar that you see here in the exercise instructions. We're going to put this on all of the rest of the pages. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pull open my files panel here, and I'm just going to start at the top. I'm going to skip the pages that I'm not putting this in, so that way I make sure I get everything in. All right, so this nav bar is going to get replaced. I'm going to go ahead and delete that out now, and I'm going to start fresh. Okay, I think it'll be a lot better if you do this, so just want to make sure I'm not deleting anything. Okay. Perfect. I'm just deleting everything that was there as far as navigation goes, because again, we're doing this completely different style. Okay, so starting with my nav tag, I'm going to need the nav bar class, and we're going to use the inverse nav bar. So I'm going to include that as well. And then inside this nav tag, I'm going to create a div for a fluid container so that my nav resizes nicely. And pretty much ready to start. So at the beginning of the nav, we have this beautiful branding for Kids Portfolio with the home icon, and that gets a special container with the navbar brand class. Okay, so this is really nice for branding purposes, a nice way to have your brand or your main title stick out nicely in the navigation. We're going to put an anchor tag in here, a link essentially, and the class is going to be the header class, navbar header. And this should link to the homepage according to the instructions. So it's saying to link to the homepage, so I'm going to have it linked to index.html. And we're going to put Kids Portfolio in there. Beautiful. Now we also want that home icon, so we can use a glyphicon called glyphicon home. Excellent. And this is not going to have any content because it's just the icon. So that should take care of the first part of the navigation. Let's see how things are looking. So I'm going to head over to pricing, refresh it. Oh, okay. So I already see that it looks good. The little home icon is right up against Kids Portfolio. So I'm just going to space that out in the code so we don't get that effect. So that's just super easy. That's just a space. And that should take care of that. So you want a little space after the span tag, and let me refresh, just make sure things looking good. All right, beautiful. So nice job if you got this far. Let's go ahead and add in the rest of the navigation. So we need to add a link for galleries and pricing. So I'm going to go under my navbar brand and I'm going to make an unordered list. This is going to have the navbar class. And we are going to need a couple list items, right? Every single link in the list is a link. Did I just say every single link in the list is a link? Okay, every single list item is a link. And make sure we set them to the right place. So this one's going to gallery.html. And it is going to say galleries. Pretty easy. The next one is going to be going to the pricing page. So this is pricing.html. And that's going to say pricing. Beautiful. All right. Now, the next part for the contact page, that one's going to go all the way to the right side of the nav bar. So we want that to be in its own unordered list because it's getting a different class. Pretty much the same class that we have up here with the addition of navbar right. That's going to shift it all the way to the right side. And this is just sort of a stylistic effect. It doesn't really change the functionality. We could easily put it right next to pricing and it would still work. But we're just being a little extra fancy here, pushing it all the way to the right. So this is going to have href set to contact HTML. And it's going to say contact. We also want that exclamation point, which is also a glyphicon. And this one, so we got to say the class we're going to use and then the icon from that class, which is glyphicon exclamation sign. Make sure you spell that correctly so you get the right icon. And this should do it. So let's go ahead and save it, refresh our nav, and whew, ladies and gentlemen, this looks amazing. Okay, so same issue as the navbar header. We have that, we need a little space there. So again, we want to just go over to the span tag and put a little space between that and the text. And amazing. This looks great. Okay, you're pretty much just going to copy this to the rest of the site. Remember, you don't want this on the index page, and you also do not want it on the galleries page since we just worked so hard to add these nav pills in. All right, I think this video has been long enough, so I'm going to stop here. If you have any questions, let me know. We're pretty much going to copy and paste this, and you're good to go. All right, we are 2 more stops away from the end of this portfolio site. It's looking so amazing. Okay, remember we started with a blank slate, and I'm really impressed with what we've built. If you have any questions, let me know. Keep up the great work.